Hello, gorgeous people. How are you? Today I'm talking about the time that I spent on Mount Stupid. And I wonder if you've been there too. I'll tell you all about it on the other side. So I don't know why, but lately I'm kind of focused on the way that we're manipulated, the way that we can manipulate other people, the way that we can convince people. And there was something I was listening to which is about confidence. So in studies they've found that if somebody speaks confidently, even though what they're saying has no basis, it has no foundation, no backup, no proof, they're just confident, compared to somebody who's given information that is backed up with studies, etc., but not confident, everybody tends to believe the person who's confident, even if there's no basis in what they say. Yes, we can. Yes, we can. Okay? So I was thinking about that. And I was thinking about something I was talking about the fact that I like to end things by saying, or maybe it isn't, or what do I know? Okay. Now I was thinking, maybe I'm doing myself a disservice because of that. Like it sounds a bit like the guy doesn't know what he's talking about, so we'll dismiss everything he says. However, in this thing that I was listening to, it said, what you have to do is, if you're giving information that you're not sure is correct, or you don't know if it's correct, then what you say is, I say this, and all the evidence very strongly suggests. So all the evidence very strongly suggests, and wow, we're there a lot, aren't we? The evidence suggests that, but I don't know if it's true. So maybe that's something I'm going to start to use, and maybe that's something you could use when you're chatting with people and you know that you don't know 100%, but you say, well, the evidence points toward this. I think that's good. But what I'm aware of is that the more that I get to know about things, the more that I know that I don't know. Okay? And it's a strange pathway, because you're gathering information. Tremendous amount of information. You're doing studies. I believe all of us, if you've done what I've done, and I guess most people have, it's like we've studied for like 3 degrees, and not the 3 degree singers. 3 degrees, we've done this one, that one, the other one. We studied years. I've been studying for years, constantly taking on board information. I know loads of stuff, but the more that I learn, the more I realize that I don't really know what's going on. I don't know. However, what I do know is that I've done the work. I'm not stupid. So when I talk about things, I'm not coming from a place of, I have no information on this, I'm just going to waffle my way through it. No, I've got loads of information, but what I haven't got is a conclusion. I haven't reached a conclusion. For example, if we were talking about the lines in the sky, I've got tons of information up here about that. I've seen endless things. But what I haven't got is a definitive conclusion as to why. I've got a bloody good idea, and it's more than one thing. But I can't say for definite I know. That's when we trap ourselves into that prison of I know it's this. And in my teachings, as I teach language, I've used this graph before, and it's the Dunning-Kruger learning curve graph, okay? And I put it up on the screen. And so what happens is this: as we start learning, we instantly climb to the peak of stupidity, sometimes called the Mount of Stupidity. I'm on Mount Stupidity. Be careful, he's on Mount Stupidity. What's Mount Stupidity? Well, this is a very small amount of information that makes people think that they understand everything about it. I've seen it in language learning. There's nobody more confident than a beginner. Beginners are confident. Ask for a beer? No problem, I know how to do that, yeah. Order in a restaurant? Yeah, I've got that sorted. It's when you get into the next bit that you realise, hang on a minute, that's nothing. And that's when we come off Mount Stupid right? When we pretend, well, we think that we know everything. Know-it-all, I would call it. Mount Stupid is the know-it-all who doesn't really have all the information. Then as we proceed, and this curve is the waking up curve, all right? When we wake up, this is what happens. In fact, whenever we embark on a new learning journey, this is the path that we take. So we wake up and we dive into the main rabbit holes and we go, whoa, I've got all this information. I know exactly what's going on. And we're on Mount Stupid. And we go around telling everybody what's exactly going on and what's exactly going to happen and who's doing what to whom and with what. That's what we are. But then as time goes on, we get more information. And this is where it starts to get difficult because we get information that contradicts what we believe. Like, hang on a minute, this doesn't fit into my puzzle. That's come from the left field. I don't even know what that's got to do with anything, but here it is in this pile of. And what happens is we fall from Mount Stupid into the Valley of Despair. The Valley of Despair is the place where suddenly you know that you don't know. You know, you've got information, but nothing is clear. Nothing makes sense, and it's an awful place to be, but it's a great place in terms of your move forward, because it's where you realize that what you have is flawed, that it isn't all that there is. And then, just as in the process that we have, you start climbing up the slope of enlightenment, where you get more and more information. And little by little, you start seeing a pattern. It's not a great pattern. Waking up hasn't got a good pattern to it. It's a bit random, I think. And it depends on which angle you go. Everyone's got a different route. But you do climb that slope. And more you become more clear about the information you've got. But on the slope of enlightenment, we start talking less. We talk less. We're kind of in observer mode. On the Mount of Stupidity, we are chatterboxes. We talk about everything. We know everything, blah, 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 blah. But then on the slope of enlightenment, we start going, hang on a minute, I think I need to reflect a little bit on this. And then finally, after God knows how long, we reach the plateau of sustainability. And that's where we've got a solid knowledge. And we can apply that knowledge to real life situations or whatever and say, right, I think I've got an idea of what's going on. But it doesn't mean that we know everything. But there's the guru expression of, hang on, the knowing through not knowing. And I think that's kind of where we get to. Where we get to a place where we've got enough information to be able to look at something. For example, I know I can look at something and say, good or bad. Typically, want fuck all to do with that. I think I'd like to get a bit closer to that. That's where my knowledge is. I can identify, I can see when there's evil behind something and when there's good behind something. And that's kind of as much as I can trust my judgment. But it's based on thousands of hours of study. How many hours of, let's call it study, because there's no difference. You know, if you're watching videos, learning stuff, this is a career that you've embarked on. You know, this is a degree that you're doing. How many hours have you studied your art, the art of waking up? And let me ask you this. If you feel, I don't know, where do you think that you are on the journey? I think I'm still on the slope of enlightenment. I don't think I've hit the plateau of sustainability. I think I thought I had right at the beginning before they made it all complex. I was there. Yeah, but I think I was probably just on Mount Stupid when I thought, yeah, it's all very clear. It's not. It's not clear at all. And I don't know really if I'll ever reach the plateau of sustainability, because there's always, I must say that many times I go, yeah, I've seen that, heard that, know about that, not interested in that. But there's nothing much that surprises me. So maybe I'm getting toward the plateau. Who knows? Where do you think you are in all of this. And what was it like on the Mount of Stupidity? How did you feel there? Just go back in your mind and put in the comments, how did you feel? What were the positive things about? Because there's some positive things about Mount Stupid. You know, you feel invincible. You know, you think you can take bullets and everything. And then what are the negative things about being on Mount Stupid? And where do you think you are now? Have you reached the plateau? If you have, good for you. I look forward to hearing what you got to say. I love you all. Bye-bye.